fan of Markaaz. Hany, how are you?
Very well. Nice to be here.
All right. Well, I'd like to start episodes with just a professional background. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what brought you to start Markaaz.
Sure. So after spending most of my professional career in two fields, actually, I started life as a nuclear physicist. So I was a serious scientist, and then moved into business and spent a number of years in the fintech space, 25 years with MasterCard, and then subsequently with AXA Group as their chief executive of their worldwide enterprise business. And a few years ago, saw so much inefficiency in key markets around the world, and saw how hard it was for large enterprises to actually address those structural inefficiencies in industry. So we had previously created a platform called Track, which is owned by MasterCard. We jointly built that with Microsoft. And this time round, we decided to do it one better and one up with Markaaz, where addressing the challenges of small businesses around the world and the significant issues that they face, we decided to do something about it. So we built Markaaz.
You said you had a previous company. You obviously have this company. Have you always been entrepreneurial?
No, well, I've always been entrepreneurial in big corp. And this time around, my co-founder, who's here in the front there, we decided to be true entrepreneurs and created this business. So we had watched a lot of others enter the entrepreneurial space and how they did it. And we did not do it the same way. We did it a little differently.
How has that kind of journey been in your mind so far?
I wished, for me, I wished I had done it 20 years ago. It's not for the faint-hearted. We tell people a lot. This is you don't transition into becoming an entrepreneur or wake up one day and think, oh, I can do this. It's a really big adjustment. There's a lot to this, but when you get the bug, there's no going back.
So before we jump into exactly what you guys offer, I had to come to the name Markaaz.
So we paid a lot of people a lot of money to come up with a name for what we do as a business, and we didn't like any of it. And so we were thinking one day, what is this thing that we're doing? And we're bringing together in one place a connection point where businesses can connect securely and safely with each other. And we were thinking about that a lot and trying to think of words, and we didn't want to come up with a weird name like Wonga or whatever. So we went to the ancient languages.
Okay.
And in many ancient languages, like in Hindi and Urdu and Arabic and Aramaic, the word Markaaz means the center of commerce.
Okay, interesting.
And so we glommed onto that, and it's spelled Markaz. We couldn't get that trademark because half the Middle East has that name, and half of the Indian communities have that name. And so we added an extra A. And that very fortuitously allowed us to, in our branding, end up at the end of our logo, which you can sort of see here with this AZ mark. So that has actually become our brand mark.
A to Z?
A to Z, exactly. So that's worked out rather well for us. And we have A to Z for small business, we've pre-registered A to Z for healthcare, we've pre-registered A to Z for mobility, and so on and so on. So we have a roadmap of where we're going to take this model into multiple industries.
Now tell us exactly what Markaaz does.
Right. So we had done research all around the world in our previous company, and again before we launched this, and we found that we're big fans of boiling structural problems in industry down to one or two key problems. And for small businesses, we found there were two fundamental problems that they were dealing with. One is they were drowning in point-to-point solutions. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? That's, if you ask a small business, they will tell you they're subscribed to currently somewhere between 25 and 30 different pieces of software. If you look on the top of their computer screen or on their phone, they'll have about 25 apps open. They spend a fortune and they use less than 10% of the feature functionality of that.
It's impossible to keep track of.
Impossible to keep track, and none of them talk to each other,
Yeah.
as we know. And there's some guilty culprits behind that. Many of them are running around in suits here, investors and venture capitalists who encourage people to stay narrow and don't talk to anybody. Big problem number one. Problem number two, they told us pre-COVID that they were spending about 17 and a half days a year verifying and re-verifying themselves. Everything they wanted to do. Where's your tax return? Where's your EIN? Where's your insurance policy? Where's your certificate of incorporation? Blah, 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 blah. Mid-COVID, for small business, that number jumped to about 1/3 of their time.
Wow.
1/3 of their time verifying and re-verifying themselves.
It's a lot of wasted time.
Oh my goodness. Tremendous problem for small business, tremendous problem for large corporate. If you speak to an honest banker, and there are many of them, they will tell you on average it takes them 2 weeks, realistically sometimes up to 4 weeks to onboard a new small business customer, and it costs them about $2,000 to do that. They're using 7 different data sources. For 2 fundamental reasons. The data for small businesses is inherently messy and not cleaned up, number one. Number 2, it's fragmented and all over the place. And number 3, their non-public artifacts take a long time to verify. So we decided to do something about that. From our previous company, we learned the trick of creating a pre-populated environment where the call to action is come claim your business, not come sign up. That's one of our fundamental differences. So we've pre-populated Markaaz with over 100 million businesses today, including 100% of all United States businesses and a big chunk of the rest of the world. By the end of this year, we will have every business on planet Earth pre-populated into our directory. We went one further than what we did last time, where we actually pre-screened all these businesses. So we've done all the OFAC sanctions, checks, etc., etc.
How do you do all that?
Lots of money and lots of time.
Yeah.
Lots of money and lots of time. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah.
And not something that gets
I'm assuming you
created
keep up with all the data.
We do. Multiple data sources that we triangulate, but here's where we come into our own. Regardless of how you come to us, and I'll talk about how you come to Markaaz, we expose to you all your public data. And we have over 200 data elements per business, more than anybody else out there. So before we created Markaaz, we went line by line through the DMB world base, we went through all the bureau data, we went through all those companies, and we found so much that was inconsistent. We wanted to do something better. So we expose it to the end user. We ask the end user to clean up their data, and our commitment to them is do it once and you don't have to do it again, because we will republish on your behalf your clean data back to all those sources. That's part one. That's pretty interesting, and no one really does that. And by the way, we're non-advertising based, which is really important. So it's not about who gets the highest hit from a paid advertising.
Yeah.
The more unique part of what we have is a private vault where you get to load your non-public artifacts once, and then they're there and available. So the next time you go and apply for a bank loan, or you open a new account, or you're entering into a new relationship with a supplier, it's one click to share that information, either as a token or the actual information. What makes it interesting and powerful to the level where banks are saying, I'll outsource my approval process to you, is that we have a level of security that's higher than anything else out there. We literally use, for those geeks that are listening to this, individual keys for every artifact. Every data element has its own keys. And every individual business's vault has its own keys. And then we manifest all of that to the end user into an integrated dashboard where they get to link their accounting software, their bank accounts, their CRM systems, and many other things into one single dashboard that they can customize for their own business. So it becomes a command center for running their business. That's part one of what we do.
But in hearing you talk about it, I can't help but think, consumers and consumer data has been like a huge focus for so many. Why is it taking so long for businesses? Because businesses, if you look at it, are infinitely higher when it comes to GDP and parts of the economy and the importance that small businesses
It's a great question.
I mean, it seems like it should have been done already.
It's a great question. I love this question so much. People have talked about supporting small business for such a long time, and it's become a very fashionable term.
Yeah.
The reality is, excuse the expression, most people, what they're really saying is, how do I screw them to get more money out of them? How do I maximize what they pay?
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why small businesses have been ignored, because they pay and they pay and they pay.
Yep.
And they get hooked on apps and on solutions that don't talk to each other, and they keep paying. And the less they use of the solution and the more they pay, the happier the vendors of those solutions are.
It seems like the ones that work best are like doing it themselves in an Excel spreadsheet,
That's right.
which is insanity.
Insanity, complete insanity. And so that's why we created this environment to say, hey, consolidate your solutions, link them up here, decide which ones you actually use. There's a resource center for solutions where they can get these things at a deeper discount, or frankly decide the ones they no longer need because they can be integrated together on the dashboard. That's part one. The second part of what we do, which is very significant again, that has never existed before, and again, talk to any banker and ask them, do you monitor your businesses? And they will tell you, we do not. We do not monitor it. Again, based on the amount of GDV and based on the risk that's associated with business, there is no monitoring. If you ask a large corporation, if you ask Walmart and others, why don't you do more business with small business, particularly mid-COVID, they will tell you it's just as hard to monitor as small business as a big, so we'd just as rather work with big business. So we've created a universal monitoring engine inside Markaaz. And that means on a completely consented basis, whether it's big business to small, bank to small, small to small, individual to small, there's consented monitoring. So what does that mean? I could say, hey, I'd like to see your cash flow every month. And you might say, I'd like to see your usage of utilities every month, or whatever it is. And as long as you both consent to that, we will administer that monitoring and deliver it in real time to both of you. No black box formulas here, completely transparent. That's a game changer. That has caused a number of banks that we're speaking to say, that would cause me to load my entire back book of business on Markaaz, or activate my entire book of business on Markaaz. That's a big deal. The third thing we do is in the world of payments, again, businesses have two fundamental issues that they deal with. One is that their funds are not cleanly and inherently in one place, and they don't pay their bills nicely from one source as everyone imagines they do. They don't. It's messy. They use personal credit cards. They use the founder's cards. They use money from a bank account. They borrow from their auntie. They do all sorts of crazy stuff. And
do whatever they can do to survive. Basically.
Whatever they can do to survive. And pays routinely say to them, this is how I want to be paid, and that's it. So we've created an environment where small businesses can link all their sources of funding, fiat and non-fiat, loyalty points, air miles, personal cards, whatever, in one place, stage that value together, and then pay and be paid on the platform in real time, and this is the heresy, at no cost. No cost transactions. Real time and no cost between businesses. And that's a first. And you'd be surprised who is behind us and who is supportive of us doing it. It would really surprise you. Go on our website, look at our investors and partners, and you'll see who's behind it. The tide is changing. And then last but not least, we're going to provide transaction-level financing and factoring so that businesses can actually finance individual transactions or get paid early for funds they're about to receive to help them with cash flow. These are really practical things that every business needs, that every business has told us they're crazy excited about. And good actors in the enterprise world have told us they love this, they're excited, they're on board with it. Bad actors will keep doing what they do, I suppose.
Do you think the impact and just upheaval of COVID has helped kind of put small business front and center in many ways like it never has been before?
100%. But it's also brought a challenging dynamic with it, and that is 40% of small businesses are new to the market, which means they don't have credit files, they don't have the typical stuff that people have triggered off in the past to provide them with solutions, cash flow or otherwise. So what we were drowning in is stories of small businesses telling us, the vendor that was coming to fix my air conditioner wanted me to pay up front, he took my money and disappeared. Or large enterprises wanting massive capital guarantees from small business before they did anything with them, or restricted lines of credit. We're seeing a meltdown in the stock market, and people are assuming it's a meltdown with small business. It isn't. It's actually a meltdown in systemic issues that exist in the market. So one of the things that we love about what we do is, from the newest minted business, the guy that was out of work and decided to become a plumber or an Uber driver, to the largest enterprise, we're able to create a comprehensive view of that business very quickly, quicker than anything else, again, because we're not simply triggering off historical credit.